obesity and the link with cancer, and we selected Thanksgiving for a very particular reason. So I do want to clarify that I'm Director of Cancer Information and Awareness. We currently have a search for the Cancer Center Director going on right now. When you think of Thanksgiving, tell me a verb that you think of. Eat, family. That's not a verb, but still. Eating and family, drinking. Okay. Nap. Okay. How about stuffed or stuffing? Okay. So the presentation is, you can come on up and get your lunch and sign in. I do want to just tell you I have a few resources. We do have some educational materials there. I want to orient you to those. If you've been at a presentation before, you might already have this. It's the cancer awareness ribbons. Every month we try to recognize different cancers. If I said pink, what cancer would you think of? If I said black, what cancer would you think of? Skin, because you've been to one of the skin cancer presentations. If I said white, what ribbon, what cancer would you think of? Lung cancer. November is Lung Cancer Awareness Month. So I just want to tell you that the best thing a person can do for their health and the health of the people they care about is not to use tobacco. All right, and I do have some information about electronic cigarettes. We are not recommending these, and also about our tobacco cessation services. Next Thursday is the Great American Smokeout, and today we call attention to not smoking and helping people get access to resources to quit smoking. So that's one of the best things you can do for your health. One of the other handouts is a cancer risk assessment. I have that for skin cancer. This one is for colorectal cancer. Okay, and if your answers to the questions fall on the left side, it would suggest a lower risk for colorectal cancer. If your answers fall on the right side, it's going to suggest a higher risk. This does not take the place of your usual annual physical exam. And on the back side, there's a medical illustration, some facts and figures about colorectal cancer, and then ways to reduce the risk. So if you don't have one of those, we have plenty up here in the front row. A couple of other announcements. We do, the Cancer Center, we do research. There is a research clinical study going on around neuropathy for people who are cancer survivors. Do we have any cancer survivors in the audience? Okay, I just want to recognize you, applaud you, and wish you well on your journey if you're in that cancer journey, or congratulations on your survivorship. It's tough, and we just want to acknowledge your journey. Thank you for sharing that with us. But for any cancer survivors, there is a study going on at Augusta University around aromatherapy and the aid in helping with neuropathy or numbness in the nerves. And I'll mention this now. We do have a walk on Saturday. So when we talk about fingers, forks, and feet, what can we do with feet? We can walk. There is a Unite in the Fight cancer walk this Saturday. Registration at 8. The walk is from 9 until 10. And then there's festivities. Meeting at Laney Walker Stadium on Laney Walker Boulevard. And that's a fundraiser for the Cancer Center. Last sales pitch here is we do offer, our Office of Cancer Information and Awareness offers classes, a series called Your Health Matters, Promoting Health, Preventing Cancer. And we touch on a variety of topics, including skin cancer, and today's topic around fingers, forks, and feet. We address prostate cancer and breast cancer as well, kidney cancer, and the link with diabetes. And we come to churches or civic organizations, other places. So please, if you're interested in having educational sessions for your groups that you belong to outside of work or even in your departments, do contact me or come sign up. And last thing I want to mention, we have a newsletter each month that you are welcome to sign up for. I send it out electronically. It's short. And without further ado, I'll continue on. We'll handle questions at the end, okay? And I'll talk at a fairly fast clip. But thank you again, Elizabeth, for having us. The Georgia Cancer Center, our mission is to reduce the burden of cancer in the state of Georgia and across the globe through superior care, innovation, which would be our clinical research, our laboratory research, and also through education, including community education. And you may be familiar with this slide. There are many components to the Cancer Center. In addition to patient care, our research, we have clinical trials, research going on where patients partner with us to test new medications or new procedures, especially if they're not responding to the standard protocols and standards of care. I just want to remind you that some of the standards of cancer care that we use today were at one time discoveries in the research labs. And that's why it's critical that we continue with our research and try to find better ways to treat cancer and improve quality of life for people going through cancer treatments. So how many of you know someone that has or had cancer? That's practically all of us in the room. Cancer touches all our lives. And I believe I've asked you before, what is cancer? Can somebody just tell me quickly what their definition of cancer is? Cells that have gone awry. Bingo, that's a good one. It's the abnormal growth of cells. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So I want to give you kind of the background, make sure we're all on baseline in terms of what cancer is, and then we'll get into some specifics around what we should be eating or what the consequences of what we eat are on our health. So cancer is not just one disease. There are more than 100 different types. And in that handout, that cancer awareness calendar, on the back side, you'll see an alphabetical listing of some of the more common cancers. But there are others that are not listed there. We classify cancer by the tissue type and the place where it starts. And it can develop in any organ, any gland. Somebody name a gland. Thyroid gland, yep. Pancreatic gland. November is also Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month. And our current newsletter does focus on that. And any system, our lymph system, our blood system. And we generally classify cancer as solids, which is most cancers, about 80%, or as liquid cancers. These would be our blood cancers, leukemia, and so on. Okay, so what is cancer? As it's a group of diseases characterized by cells that are gone awry or grow without control. Abnormal cells will spread or metastasize. And it's a person's own cells that have changed, and their own immune system cannot overcome that change in the cells or that abnormal cell growth. And we are looking at cancer as an immune disease. How many of you have heard of immunotherapy? Okay, so this is a treatment. Sometimes it's used in combination with surgery or chemotherapy, medications, or radiation therapy. But it is harnessing a person's own immune system, bolstering their immune system to help combat the abnormal cell growth. Jimmy Carter, when he had brain cancer, he was on immunotherapy as well as other treatments. And he's still alive today at about 93 or 94. If you haven't had a chance to go to his Sunday school, I highly recommend it. It's just, he's a wise man and has a lot to share. So you can Google him and get his schedule for his Sunday school. It's very popular, and it's hard to get there, get in. But it is a person's own immune system. When a person's own immune system does not destroy the abnormal cells, and they continue to grow. So that, in a nutshell, is what cancer is. So I want to talk about the causes of cancer. Of course, in this pie chart, tobacco is responsible for 30% of cancers. There are 14 different cancers associated with tobacco. Well, that's another topic for another time. But let's look at obesity and overweight, the green wedge of the pie. Overweight, obesity is linked to 13 different cancers. If you combine that with physical inactivity and poor diet, then that accounts for another third of cancers. So right away we can see that behavior choices can impact the majority of cancers. So obesity and overweight are related to 13 different cancers, and I just want to highlight some of these. Breast cancer after menopause, but also breast cancer in men. Ovarian cancer in women, uterine cancer is 2 to 4 times a greater risk. Aggressive prostate cancer in men, and then multiple myeloma, which is a cancer of the blood cells. Meningioma is a cancer of the tissues covering the brain and the spinal cord. And I'm going to list down the center some of the other cancers associated with obesity and overweight. Many of these have to do with the digestive tract. So esophageal cancer, twice the risk of esophageal cancer for obesity or overweight. Thyroid cancer, twice the risk for stomach cancer. Pancreatic cancer, 1.5 times increased risk. Liver, twice the risk. Gallbladder, kidney cancer, twice the risk. Now think about the kidney and the liver. These are organs designed to what? Filter our blood and help our entire system. Bladder cancer and colorectal cancer. So in the United States, we have an obesity epidemic. And I just put this slide in here so we could see how Georgia measures up. And we have about 1/3 of our population that is obese, another third overweight. So 2/3 of our population. But Colorado is one of the healthier states. Okay. So let's keep that in mind, not moving necessarily, but the importance of physical activity. And so Georgia, we are the 24th highest state in the country for adult obesity out of 51 states, and the 8th highest obesity rate among youth. So 24th among adults and 8th highest among youth between the ages of 10 to 17. So we can change that number. We can do something about it. There is an epidemic worldwide. We call it globesity. And in the U.S., 2 in 3 adults, or 70%, are either obese or overweight. This is 1 in 3 are overweight, and 1 in 3 are obese. More men than women are either obese or overweight. In Georgia, as I mentioned, 1/3 of our population, it's 31.6%, have a body mass index, BMI, of 30 or higher, and 1/3 are overweight, BMI of 25 or higher. By 2030, we expect the United States population, unless we do something about it, to be about 42% obese. So this begs the question, what is overweight and obesity? Quite simply, excess body fat, an unhealthy proportion of body fat. And it's especially the abdominal obesity, the extra fat around the waist that concerns us. Now, I mentioned the body mass index, and this is a formula. So for a healthy weight, your BMI should be between 18.5 and 24.9. And anything over 30 would be a BMI of 30 or higher, would be adult obesity. children, the BMI index differs, so we're not going to go into that. But there's another way and an easier way, I think, to be mindful of an unhealthy measure around our waist, and that is using a tape measure for females, anything more than 35 inches. So 36 inches is 3 feet, so anything more than 35 inches, and for males, anything more than 40 inches. I do have some tape measures here. They're available. We're not going to measure ourselves here, but I just want to give these to anybody that's interested as a tool. So as you begin thinking about how am I going to stay fit and measure my progress, then you're welcome to have some of the tape measure up here. So how do we know that waistline and our weight is linked to disease? We know that, and we're going to focus on cancer in particular, but overweight increases cancer death risk by 1.5 times higher in men and also in women. For our waistline, higher than 47 inches in males or 42 inches in women, so 42 inches or higher in women, we see twice the risk, double the risk of death from cancer, from heart disease, and from respiratory disease. Most people know that overweight, obesity is linked to what? Diabetes, stroke, heart disease. And less people know the link with cancer. I didn't know there was a link with cancer till I started in this field. So my background is more in tobacco prevention and control. But so I'm on a mission to help encourage people to be fit, to promote their health, to live long, to prosper, and to maintain a healthy weight so that we can reduce the unnecessary burden associated with overweight and obesity. As I mentioned, 13 different cancers. So the next question is, well, why is that? Why does overweight or obesity link to cancer? And it does cause bodily changes. It increases some hormone levels. It increases inflammation within the body. And we know that inflammation in our body is wearing on our immune system. And we have to think of our body as a system. And cancer is related to our immune system, our own immune system's inability to overcome that rapid cell growth. So this is how it all begins to tie in. Okay, so 55% of the cancers in women and 24% of the cancers diagnosed in men are associated with overweight and obesity. So this would be 2 and 3 cancers in adults between the ages of 50 and 74. And we are seeing new cancer cases associated with obesity and overweight higher among blacks and higher among whites compared to other racial groups and ethnic groups in the United States. And the source of this information is from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. They're a wonderful resource of information and research. So what causes obesity and overweight? Our body weight's influenced by genetics, right? By behavior, by hormones, and there are some diseases and some treatments. Prader-Willi is an example of a disease where a person's body does not signal, the brain does not signal that they are full from eating, so they have a tendency to overeat. So that would be an example of a disease or treatment. But I want to focus, we can't do much about our genetics. We are who we are, but we can do something about our behavior. And then the hormones, it depends on a number of factors, including our stage of life as well. So what causes obesity and overweight, and what is it? It's an imbalance between energy in, right, the calories we consume, and energy out, the calories that our body uses. So we, as a society in the United States, are eating more energy-dense foods that are high in fat. And We are engaged in less physical activity, more sedentary work. I don't know about you guys, but I sit at a desk way too much. And changing transportation. We hop in the car and go everywhere we need to go, or catch the bus, sometimes ride a bike. Riding a bike would be great. And then increasing urbanization. So some of these factors impact how much physical activity we engage in. But what can we do? We can change that imbalance. We can have our energy in, the calories we consume equal what we burn. And we can do this through our fingers, forks, and feet. So with our fingers, we do want to pick up fresh fruits and vegetables. I had somebody ask me yesterday, well, what about fruit cups? And I said, well, fruit's good, but when you start getting the packaged fruits, you want to read the ingredients. There's a lot of sugar. There's a lot of syrup. There may be salt. Said, what about fresh apples or fresh fruit, or creating your own fruit cups? So that might be an alternative strategy. So do pick up fresh fruits and vegetables, and of course, do not pick up tobacco. I will tell you that colon cancer is in part considered a smoking disease because of the high rate of colon cancer among people who smoke. With our forks, let's pick up healthy fruits and vegetables. So here's a quick quiz question for you. Which of these pictures is more closely related to colon cancer? Would B? Is that unanimous? Okay. Okay, so that's correct. A diet high in fat, red meats, processed meats, charred meats increases our risk for colon cancer. So what we eat and inactivity contribute to overweight and obesity. So diets high in fat, high-calorie foods and drinks. Highly recommend water as your beverage of choice, or teas that you're not sweetening. A diet with few fruits and vegetables or whole grains also contributes to that. I want to talk a little bit about meat consumption and processed meat and the link with cancer. So eating processed meat is carcinogenic to humans. And this could include salting, curing, fermenting, smoking, and other enhancing or preservative processes. So you want to be reading your labels on your meats. And eating red meat is probably carcinogenic to humans, and this would be unprocessed mammalian meats, and there's a variety there. Beef, bison, mutton, lamb, goat, veal, pork, and horse. Different cultures eat different mammals. And then cooking, how we prepare the food. So high temperatures, cooking over an open flame, pan frying, grilling, barbecuing, these produce carcinogenic chemicals. So you can grill, but there are ways you could grill without getting the char on there. And so that's what you want to avoid. Some of the dietary guidelines limit our sugar intake, our saturated fat, and our sodium. And I just bought a pound of butter last night because I'm going to do some baking for the holidays. But I do, so you just want to limit some of the unnecessary fats and sugars as well. So eat healthy fats. And I'll talk about those in a minute. But if you're going to eat dairy, choose fat-free or low-fat, and in a variety of sources: milk, cheese, yogurt, or fortified soy beverages, fruits, vegetables, dark green, red, orange, beans and peas, whole grains, a variety of proteins, seafood. I recommend wild-caught as opposed to farm-raised. Lean meats, if you're going to eat meat, poultry, eggs, beans, peas, nuts, and soy, and drink water. So the new American plate, the dietary recommendation is 2/3 of the plate should be fruits, vegetables, and whole grains and beans, and 1/3 or less can be your animal protein, but it doesn't always have to be animal protein. It can be another source of protein. So we want to encourage you to eat at least 5 or more servings a day, 2.5 cups of fruits and vegetables every day. And so my advice is, just when you prepare your plate, think color. It can be oatmeal in the morning, which is fairly drab, but just think color. What can you add to that? Strawberries, blueberries, just a variety of colors. Somebody asked me yesterday, well, I make a smoothie and I put kale and all kinds of things in that. Does that count as my vegetable? I said, definitely. So it can be drinkable or it can be eatable. So you want your greens, your berries, your citrus, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, kale, collards, mustard greens, cabbage are really good for you and healthy. And so colored fruits and vegetables contain healthy antioxidants, and we need those to help boost our immune system. Our dietitian at the Cancer Center had this list of superfoods and some of the benefits of superfoods. So they promote gastrointestinal health. It's like our second brain here, and then our digestive system. These superfoods will strengthen our teeth, bones, and gums. They stimulate brain power. They help improve our sleep quality, decrease our risk for heart disease, and help protect against colon and breast cancers. Some contain anti-aging properties, and eating well and eating some of these superfoods she maintains can help us manage stress and enhance coping. So here's her top 10 list of superfoods. And these contain antioxidants that can help decrease the free radicals associated with cancer development. And some are probiotic or pro-life. And they support the microorganisms in our gut or in our intestines and help aid in digestion. And one example would be kefir. Anybody familiar with kefir? It is a cultured milk product. So it does aid in digestion. So wild-caught salmon, oats, steel-cut oats are recommended by our dietitian. Wild blueberries. Now, it doesn't mean you have to go out and forage wild blueberries, but fresh blueberries. They can be frozen too, but better to get fresh or frozen rather than blueberries in syrup, because then you're getting all kinds of other ingredients and sugars. Walnuts are considered brain food. So nuts, broccoli, kefir, olive oil is a healthy oil to use. Dark chocolate, that's good news for anybody that likes chocolate. Dark chocolate is better. Avocados also have a healthy oil content. And red beans, and it doesn't have to be kidney beans. It can be red lentils or other forms of red beans. So I just want to review the nutrition goals before we move on to the feet. So we're still in the forks section and the fingers section. So a diet low in fat, avoid saturated and trans fats, a plant-based diet and lean proteins, and then complex carbohydrates. And there's a whole smattering of grains listed here and seeds. But whole grains also provide fiber, fewer processed foods, and heart-healthy fats such as olive oil and canola oil. So when we're looking at a healthy diet for cancer prevention, we're also affecting our health and promoting a diet for heart health. Example. So we're going to move on to the feet section, and basically stay physically active. Walk whenever you can, and there's all kinds of strategies to increase your walking, like parking further away from your building and walking or further away from the grocery store door and walking from the car to the grocery store. Taking the stairs instead of the elevator, those kinds of things. Dancing, so on. So being physically active helps us maintain an appropriate weight for our height. It promotes bone, muscle, and joint health. It reduces the risk of high blood pressure and diabetes. It promotes psychological well-being. It's a great stress reliever to walk and or run, cycle. Reduces the risk of heart disease, and it reduces the chances of premature growth. Death. Sorry, thank you. You guys are paying attention. All right. So reduces the chances of premature death. So I want to show you how more specifically, which cancers are, the chances of getting these cancers are lowered by being physically active. Certainly in the colon, the lung, a 20% reduced risk. You're using your lungs more when you're physically active. The prostate cancer, uterine cancer, decreased risk by 20 to 40%. And this source of information, this comes from the National Cancer Institute. So this is evidence-based information that I'm sharing with you. Breast cancer, 30 to 40% lower risk of breast cancer for women who are getting moderate to vigorous exercise 3 hours a week or more. And dancing is a great way to, oh, we got a dancer in the audience, to exercise. Okay, so what makes a difference? I want to hone in on colon cancer. What makes a difference around physical activity? Intensity, how vigorously we exercise. Duration, how long we exercise, and how often. So among active adults, we know that physical activity can reduce colon cancer by 30 to 40% compared to non-active adults. And the more active you are, the greater the benefit. So linking that to colon cancer risk, 30 to 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous activity a day. Now, some of the possible mechanisms. So we say exercising helps reduce the risk for colon cancer, but how is that? Why does that happen? So some possible mechanisms include it helps you maintain an energy balance. It affects your hormone metabolism. Circulating hormones control actions of some cells and some organs, and an increased metabolism helps get rid of toxins that we may have ingested or breathed. Helps regulate insulin. Decreases the amount of time food waste and potential carcinogens from the food that we eat are in our intestines, so it moves things through the system. So these are some of the possible mechanisms, and it alters inflammatory and immune factors. So here again, we're bolstering our immune system by staying physically active. Well, what do we recommend? We recommend at least 30 minutes a day. It doesn't have to be done all at one time. It can be 15 minutes twice a day, 10 minutes 3 times a day in terms of physical activity. Now, if you're trying to get a cardiovascular workout, then you're going to want to have sustained vigorous activity to get your heart rate up. But just in terms of staying physically active, a minimum of 30 hours a day. I recently got a dog. Now I have 2, but that makes, that keeps me walking because I feel guilty if I don't walk the dogs. 150 minutes or 2.5 hours of moderate activity a week, and then 75 minutes or 1 hour, 15 minutes of vigorous activity a week. So these are some guidelines for staying physically active. So leverage your lifestyle to change your health outcomes. And I'm going to summarize here. So as far as behavior choices, with your fingers, do pick up healthy foods and don't use tobacco. With your forks, eat real food, non-processed, and mostly plants in balanced combinations. How many people in the room are gardeners? Gardeners? A few. So I encourage gardening as a great way to stay physically active and access to healthy foods. And we're so lucky in Georgia because we can garden all year round. And then you know whether or not there are chemicals on your food, and you can't get much fresher than just going out and picking it yourself in your yard. And then with feet, staying physically active. So in conclusion, I want to say that obesity and overweight are preventable. Obesity is a growing cause of cancers, 13 different cancers associated with obesity. Help prevent cancer with your fingers, forks, and feet. We can do this by maintaining a healthy weight for our height with physical activity and wholesome nutrition. We want to make the healthy choice the easy choice. So with your plates, just think color. And if you have kids, I strongly encourage you to engage them in gardening because then they learn where food comes from and they have appreciation for fresh foods. So what can you and your community or your workplace do to promote your health and to reduce the risk for obesity and cancers related to obesity? So I'm just going to share with you a few resources and some information coming up. I did mention our monthly news brief called the C Word. I have a sign up here. We have the walk, Unite in the Fight, that's Saturday, 8 to 11 for festivities at Laney Walker High School Stadium. And then November is Lung Cancer Awareness Month. And so the Great American Smokeout is on the 15th, so a week from today. So in conclusion, the only thing that should be stuffed on Thanksgiving is the turkey. So, I say that because I want us to be, mindful of portion control. That's another way that we can modify some of our dietary patterns. So maybe taking a little bit of a variety of foods. But that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. And I think we have, what time is it? It's 12:42. Yeah, Jane. For wild-caught salmon, salmon was one of the superfoods that our dietitian identified. And rather than farm-raised salmon, she recommends wild-caught. We want to limit our intake of red meat and also processed meats. Okay, and so, yeah, so you're getting your fruit, you're just getting your fruit with less water, right, because you're dehydrating it. So, so I didn't mention dried fruits and vegetables, but those are a good source of vitamins and nutrients without the additives. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a great strategy. So that way you can get your variety of fruits when they're in season, dry them, and have them throughout the year. Any other questions? Okay, so she's talking about vaping. She wants me to make a few remarks about vaping. Anybody know what I'm talking about when I say vaping? Okay, using electronic cigarettes. Okay, so I want to mention that. So the tobacco industry and the electronic cigarette industry have created some new terminology, such as juuling. Do you know what I mean when I say juuling? Okay, that means using, it's now a verb taken from the word juul, J-U-U-L, which is a type of electronic cigarette. Looks very much like a jump drive, easy to conceal, rapid use among youth in juuling because they can use it. It looks like a jump drive. They can charge it in their computers. So we do have over time we've seen tobacco use decrease because people are more aware of the health effects of tobacco use. We're seeing a rapid increase, skyrocketing of electronic nicotine delivery systems, electronic cigarettes among young people, elementary school, middle school, high school, and young adults. Our concern from a public health perspective is that young people who are using e-cigarettes are getting nicotine. Nicotine is a toxic, addictive drug, and it impacts brain development, both in utero if the mom smokes while pregnant, cigarettes or electronic cigarettes, and for young people. So those are our main concerns, that young people are becoming addicted to nicotine, and that's going to lead to co-use with combustible or conventional cigarettes. Notice how my language has had to change to keep up. I don't just say regular cigarettes. I have to say combustible or conventional cigarettes. So we refer to people who are using e-cigarettes, not smoking, because it is not a combustible product. It is an e-cigarette has a liquid. It has a liquid that's got flavoring. It's got nicotine. Now, it doesn't always have to have nicotine, but many do. But flavoring, nicotine, formaldehyde is another ingredient. It's different heavy metals like lead, nickel, cadmium, tin. So we cannot yet say that e-cigarettes cause cancer because they haven't been around long enough. We don't have the longitudinal data and studies, but we can say they have cancer-causing chemicals in them. The main liquid in the e-cigarettes is propylene glycol. Does anybody know? Have you heard of that term, propylene glycol? It's an ingredient in antifreeze, right? So the advertising, we're trying to play catch up here because the advertising, the e-cigarettes came out, they were advertised as safe, only water vapor, and so on. They are not just water vapor. The aerosol, so we say secondhand aerosol, not vapor. That's an industry term. And so the secondhand aerosol from e-cigarettes is not harmless water vapor. So we also are not recommending them as a way to quit conventional or regular cigarettes because you're still getting the nicotine. 1 joule pod is has enough nicotine that's equivalent to 1 pack of cigarettes. And we see the research that kids don't know that. So 62% of the children who use e-cigarettes that were surveyed recently did not know that. So that's a whole nother presentation because we're seeing some of the same advertising techniques from tobacco being applied to e-cigarettes. And so I have a whole nother presentation in that Your Health Matters series that goes into more depth about that. I can barely keep up with the new electronic products. They've evolved over time, so we need more research. Does that answer your question? That's a good question. So I was at a meeting in Atlanta on Tuesday, and that's one of the things that we discussed was we need to get more education into the schools about e-cigarettes and the health consequences of those. Right now we know the short-term consequences, respiratory distress, and nicotine and so on, but we don't know the long-term consequences. But I would love to talk with you in more detail. Maybe the licensing office for businesses, especially those that are wanting to establish vape shops or electronic cigarette shops or hookah lounges, maybe we can provide some education about e-cigarettes to those vendors. But we need to educate the kids. They have easy access online, and the advertising was in place promoting e-cigarettes long before the Food and Drug Administration just last year stepped in to regulate cigarettes. That's a really good point. And any way that you guys think you can partner in your work with the Cancer Center to educate and inform about whether it's e-cigarettes or healthy eating or cancer prevention, do reach out to me. I'd be happy to partner with you and come and do in-services with staff. Any other questions? Thymus gland. So that's a cancer that I'm not familiar with, but you're right. It is rare, and some of the cancers that are listed there are more common. Were you able to get information that you needed and the care that you needed for that? Thank. You doing okay now? Glad you were able to get the care you needed and got it in a timely way. So this makes me think about the importance of screening. So, we know screening saves lives, whether it's colorectal cancer screening, breast cancer, prostate cancer, or lung screening. We do offer free lung screening for long-term smokers. If a cancer can be caught early, then the chances of survival are greater. So do follow the screening recommendations and guidelines. But thank you again so much, Elizabeth, for this opportunity. And I'll be here if I know you guys have to get back to your offices, but I'm happy to answer any other questions people have.